What's going on, guys? Clone Force 23 here with another PQ update. I've got my boy Alec here. Say hello to the people.
What is up with the people?
What's up? Alex here as well to bring forth another deck from our team, from our Fargo PQ Showing. Another top 8. One of our team members, Max, came in with Jango Tarkintown and had a pretty good time. Alec, I think you got the rundown from him, so I'll kind of let you take a spin and tell us what happened.
Yeah, he's fortunately not able to make it to the video today on account of not having a microphone or a webcam. So
We'll
we're
fix that.
we'll fix that. So we'll break it down for him here. Won't have as much insight. Obviously, I didn't pilot the deck, but I do have his pairings and what he kind of thought was great about the deck. In a nutshell, it's just kind of typical Jango Tarkintown, right? We knew the deck was strong, but just a couple things that he thought were, the important things to touch on and how to play the deck. So run through his pairings here, as opposed to like a good. Actually, it's just kind of me. I was like the only one I think that had 6 different decks in Swiss because I know Cody played like 3 Jangos and spoiler alert, Max ran into 3 Anakins, so I was the only one with that like unique run. But his first match was against Anakin Blue, and he won that 2-0. His second match was against Vader Green, and he won that 2-0. His third match was against Cody and Anakin Blue, so we had a good chunk of friendly fire this PQ, unfortunately, but he got 2-0'd by that Anakin Blue. And his round 4 was another Anakin Blue, but he 2-0'd that one. His round 5 was a green Yoda, and he 2-0'd, or I'm sorry, a yellow Yoda, and he 2-0'd that guy. Oh no, yeah, green Yoda. I don't know why I was thinking Yoda was green. I was like sitting next to them when this happened. So the Yoda guy was pretty cool. So green Yoda 2-0, and then his round 6 was against mono red Kylo Ren with Tarkintown. So really cool. Like, I mean, yeah, he played 3 Anakin Blues, but a cool pairing of like other decks that he got to face off against. So he 2-0'd all of his opponents other than Cody. So the friendly fire sucked, but at least it was like, all right, that round's done with. And then he did top cut. Fun fact about us: so I was the only undefeated player in Swiss, so I had the best record. Max was the best. He had the best record out of any of the 5-1 players because he 2-0'd all of his opponents. And then Cody had the best record out of all the 4-2s. So as the 3 of us out of the team that made it to the top cut, we all had like the best pairings for our bracket, which was cool. And the friendly fire, I think ultimately, like how it all got mingled up, like helped everyone. Because Cody's loss was to me, and then Max's loss was to Cody. So they're all like, it kind of boosted us, which is cool.
Yeah.
And then his top cut match was against the Bossk Green that won the entire PQ, and he got 2-0'd by that guy. So he lost a top cut round 1, just like me. He just said Overwhelming Barrage is a hell of a card. So that's what Jango has to say about that card.
Say what you will about, Poe and Wrecker and Dark Sabers, and you talk about Ruthless Raiders in here, but yeah, Overwhelming Barrage is still a pretty darn good card.
OB is still OB. It still just flips the board. So that was his run. Yeah, typical Jango list. I know the Geonosis Patrol Fighter, that's kind of the new hotness that people are onto. He said that card felt amazing all day, especially against Blue Hero, which he played a bunch of. And I think he's the best card in the deck is by far triple dark raid if you hit
yeah.
Ruthless Raider. And then I guess the true best card of the deck is Ruthless Raider. But he like did a statistic of the games that he won if he hit Ruthless Raider off the triple dark raid, and it was like 95% of his games. So which was like all of them. And I think he did not hit any Ruthless Raiders off of his TDRs against Cody. So who knows what would happen? But he's like, yeah, that card is absurd in this deck. So that was his kind of standout stuff. He did say he really liked the Crafty Smuggler start a lot of the times today versus the Greedo ISB Tarkintown stuff, which a lot of people have adapted to. I know in, Mono Han, they're running L3 and Crafty Smuggler. There are other decks running shielded, turn ones or something along those lines. So, yeah, I know he tended to lean towards that more than just the Greedo ISB. So, but yeah, other than that, just kind of typical Jango stuff. He had a really great run that day. Unfortunate out in the top 8, but was still successful. So shout outs to our boy Max, and think he'll be running this as well at the upcoming PQ with me and a couple changes. So again, look out for the channel. This might show up and have some updates to it as well.
Yeah, I mean, still a solid deck. I mean, we've seen a lot out of Cunning Aggression. This is kind of the villainy side of it. Some great opportunities there, and Ruthless Raider just continues to be an insane card, and bringing it out early, or I hate the thought of a sneak attack Ruthless Raider followed up by a triple dark raid to pull your other Ruthless Raider.
Right.
Like, oh, okay. Well, you don't even have to keep them on the board, and that's like 12 damage. So
yeah.
But yeah, no, yeah, great work there, Max. Hoping to see some good stuff there. We're going to take the rest of this time here to kind of now take the pause, because we're going to look at the PQ as at right now. If you've noticed, we're not talking about what I played because it went awful. I guess I'll talk about it in a minute. I took a hard look at what people were playing and what people were going to bring, and it seemed very aggression heavy. So I tried to come in with a Krennic ECL, and out of the 6 rounds I got to see 2 aggro decks. So that was my 2 wins.
And what'd you do when you faced the aggro
I
decks?
got my 2 wins. That was it. Unfortunately, I got outpaced by some CAD Tarkintowns, and Blue Boss did what Blue Box does. So, not great. But I'd certainly consider maybe some tweaks to the deck. Maybe I think I would have won a game specifically if I had the 30 HP base against a CAD. But I think if I was going 30 HP, it'd have to be a completely different build. So, a lot of options there. Lessons learned. Still had a great time. So let's...
I think you still... Notable, there's only like 2 Krennic ECL, and I think you finished higher than the other one. So, in the whole, the 4 of us had like the best showing for the decks that we were playing, which is cool.
Yeah, I mean, I might have eked by to stay in that club, but I'll take it. Yeah. But now that so Fargo was the first weekend of PQs, and I think we're just settling up on this weekend's. I don't think we have the reports for everything, but we've got a lot of information on it, so let's just take a quick look at that. So you should see on here now that we're not only looking at the what was hitting top 8, but obviously what won. And I think 2 out of the 5 decks that we expected did exactly what it was supposed to do, and that's Mono Yellow Han and Sabine Green. I mean, I think a specific note that I would make is that between the first weekend and the second weekend, there was a huge surge of hot yellow. And
Yeah.
if we didn't, if we don't have if this website doesn't have the reports on it yet, I'm sure that we're going to see an increase in that as well. For how
Yeah.
many showings there were. I think I saw that there was one in New York that 6 out of the 8 were monohans. I couldn't imagine that amount of mirror matching, but
Oh,
um, mirror matches in any form are just awful.
yeah. Especially in that deck. That
Yeah.
deck's like the worst mirror match ever. It's like so much like resource stuff and smuggle and just grindy.
Yeah. But the looking at this right now, the the top 6 decks that we talked about are the top 6 decks that showed up in top eights.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, but I think what makes a bigger difference is what actually won. Um,
Right.
I think the coolest notables in this are Anakin Blue, which is awesome, and then Bosk Green. I think when we were there in Fargo and that guy won. I believe his channel name is Battle Wagon. Um, Shout out to him, great win. I was extremely pumped to kind of see, as much as I wanted Cody to win, I was excited to see Boss kind of kick up again because
Yeah.
you know, Boss Green was my set 2, and I had a great time with that. But I mean, we just talked about it 5 minutes ago. OB is still OB. OB is still an amazing answer, and especially the answer to these other decks that are coming out right now. Don't matter what you're playing, but if you clear the board, you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Notable with that too. You look at the top 8 representation. Overwhelming Barrage is not in any of those decks until you get to Kira.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the top, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the top 7 most represented decks that make top 8. They're just like, we don't got to care about Overwhelming Barrage because like
Mm-hmm.
no one's playing that deck. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like this. Like you said, Bosk just sneaks out of nowhere and like, welcome back, Overwhelming Barrage. Like,
Yeah, it's just one of
remind
those.
everyone why I'm broken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's green villainy ramp. Pair it with red for some aggressive options or removal, or pair it with blue to just control the board. Feels great.
Yep.
Um, but we said it in an earlier video, and I'll say it again. It does not matter what you play to a point, to a point. But the 2 most important things are what you draw and what your opponent draws. In addition to that, who you match up against, because
Yep.
I don't know how many conversations you and I have had where it's like, okay, we want to sit down and figure out what deck we're going to play, and one of our biggest questions is how many tough matchups do we want to have? And the decks that are performing the most are probably having the least amount of like disadvantaged matchups. You
Yeah,
know,
for sure.
I can't speak too much about about aggro decks and what their matchups are. It's typically a strong mid-range tempo or a hard control that gets their draws. Um, but so we're seeing so the statistics kind of line up there for me, in my opinion. I think the most notable surprise um, was Jango. I think we talked about this the most out of everything, and I think we set this up as like the number one to be like, yep, watch out for this. This is going to be crazy. And if you look here, it had a 7% representation and 1 PQ win as of
Yeah.
this video.
Right.
You know,
Yeah,
where
it might even be lower than that, like compared to the
hmm
rest of the decks in this list.
yeah, it's just I you know I and maybe it was just because everyone saw it coming and was like, nope, I don't want to lose to this, so I'm gonna have a lot of main board answers to it. I think we see a lot of blue represented in some areas. So there's those perilous positions that everyone's talking about, and then definitely a lot of red, where we're either seeing pink Tarkintowns or just people playing Daring Raid in the board. To
Yeah,
just we're just going to keep those units off the board.
right. Yeah, the downfall of Django is definitely is like it wasn't even just us. Like you talk to anyone before the first weekend of PQs, everyone's like, "Yeah, Django's the best deck. That's what you should expect the most to run into." And that was even like true.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not for me, but I think for just people in general at PQs, and there was a lot of Django. But I think it's just a lot of people maybe picked up that deck with the Boba mindset, where like, oh, you could just pick up Boba Fett in set 1 and 2 and do good at a tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Or Django isn't that good, right? He is definitely a good leader, but the deck isn't like auto win like Boba was. And so, you know, maybe it's a skill issue, I guess, or just like he said, there's a lot of anti Jango stuff in the main deck for a lot of people right now. And people, I'm sure, were like, okay, this is the deck to beat. So this is what my main deck's got to be set for. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
now, it's kind of like Sabine Han. Like, that's the deck you got to be main
Mm-hmm.
deck for. So now, this next upcoming weekend of PQs, are we going to see the rise of Django again? Like, people not being ready? It's just it's cool to watch this.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't have a third as many PQs as this during the first round of them, so it's cool to see this like ebb and flow of the meta, where it's like, all right, this week you got to be prepared for this deck. This day, this week you got to be prepared for this deck because everyone's going to switch to it. So that's super fun to see in a game that's still so new. But yeah, it's very interesting to see the what's winning, what's not, what are those lists looking like versus kind of your normal cookie cutter lists.
Yeah.
Um, really cool.
Yeah. It still feels like a delicate ecosystem. The meta,
Mhm.
like there are still a lot of decks that are being, I think, discovered or tried. Um, I think this is a result of we talked a lot about like what we speculated the result of Boba getting banned was, and everyone was like, well, it's just Sabine's gonna take off and it's gonna go crazy, and it's like, yeah, it has the most wins, but if you look at it, it's 22% of the wins. Like that's not crazy. And
Yeah.
there are some people out there that are saying, Sabine's gonna get banned, ECL's gotta get banned. Like, I'm gonna show you one thing. I'm gonna show you one thing that should just disprove all of that. And we're just gonna go down to the bottom of these wins here, and I see a Mace Windu blue, Mace Windu blue, and a Yoda red.
PQ winner. That guy's going to day 2 at Worlds.
That guy's going to do it. And we have a Yoda red. Now, I'm super proud of this guy because Yoda red is my like red blue hero. I love that. And I looked at their deck list and I already have like tweaks of my own that I'm excited about. And then we're seeing other iterations that I think meta has not even talked about. Cad blue, Iden blue, maybe, Palpatine yellow, Anakin ECL, Quinlan ECL, you
Yeah.
know, Akira Green got in there as well, which is great. But if you take all of these random variety wins, it is the most wins if you stand them up against Sabine or Han. So
Yeah.
no, my personal opinion, I don't think there's a ban that's needed right now.
No.
I think this is a positive result of banning an actual problem, which was boba, which was doubling the representation and win numbers that we're seeing out of the top heroes right now, or top
Right.
leaders. So
Yeah, I agree.
I just don't, I don't think that there's, I don't think there's a need for that. Um, I don't think it's in this report, but I will say that I believe a Krennic ECL did take a PQ
He
earlier
did. I
today.
believe it was today. Yep.
Which you know, maybe I'm not crazy then, and I still don't think I'm deserve any credit right now, but there's a lot of answers that can happen. There's something to be said about what your local meta is, what are people doing around you. People, of course, are going to travel for these PQs, so you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen or what they're going to bring. So you just and what I appreciate specifically about what your decision was to bring Sabine was this is what I played since that one. This is something I'm the most comfortable with. I know my plays, I know my lines, and I know my outs. Like, there's something to be said about that, and I would give that person the advantage over someone who goes, oh, well, Han Yellow is winning the most right now, so I'm going to sleeve up Han Yellow and see what happens. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's arguably the hardest deck to pilot right now because
Yeah.
there is resourcing decisions. There are decisions to ramp. There's decisions to smuggle. There's decisions to not deploy Han, push for game. Like there's so many things, and it's all out there. So
Yeah. Yeah, the other thing too is like there's no matchup in this game where it's just straight up unwinnable like Boba was. It's not like you're gonna play the mono Han deck and win every game. Like you will lose games to
mm-hmm.
other decks and you will have tough matchups, grind games. Yeah, I'm not saying just play something that's dog water of a deck, but like play what you know and play what you like and play something that like that's a very real thing. Don't play something going into an extremely long tournament, 6-7 rounds of Swiss cut to top 8, where you're going to be like super overrun in your brain every single game, being like, oh my gosh, I don't know this deck. What decision should I make? Like, be confident in the deck that you're going to be playing so that you can have a clear mind and be like, all right, yeah, I know I should do this. And hey, if I don't draw this card, like it might be a problem. And I go from there. Again, we've got a Mace Blue that took down a PQ. That guy could have been playing Mace Blue since the beginning of set 3, and he's just a monster on that deck. And that's how he won, because he brought something that was he's comfortable with and something maybe people weren't expecting, and it worked out for him. So yeah, don't feel like, oh my gosh, these I want to play mono green Chancellor Palpatine, but he's not winning anything. Well, that doesn't matter. Like, you might be the person that needs to win with him. That's a good deck. So
yeah,
don't just look at it and be like, I'm going to pick one of these cookie cutter decks from the top 5 and be like, yeah, this is what I should run. So, I mean, Jango is literally the example of that. I mean, it's the 4th most represented deck in top 8 cuts, and it's probably higher than that now after the end of this weekend, but he's only won 1 PQ so far off this data. So yeah,
I mean, there's just a lot of variables you can't control in this, and especially when there is just a huge deck variety out there. Yeah, I mean, from of course, from that perspective, I think the big takeaways is that Han Yellow is extremely validated. It's I think if you see the full breakdown between top 8 representation week 1 versus week 2, it had a huge rise. So I would expect that more people are going to switch to this, and I would potentially consider some main board options. You know?
Yep.
And I've got a few in my mind because I hate getting tech DJ'd. You've done that enough times to me where I just never want to have it again. So there's, that's what you would. I mean, my suggestion would be is to, in terms of like main board, sideboard, my suggestion would probably be to focus more of your main board on aggro and potentially specifically to Han answers. And I think the one thing that kind of makes that helpful is that you're either trying to deal with Tech DJ coming out, dealing with that, or you're trying to get rid of 5 HP leaders, which there are a decent amount of outs to that, and it really doesn't overpower your sideboard.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, you talked about in Sabine, it's like, I have 7 cards to deal with blue villainy control. It's like, that specific archetype. Whereas you can kind of build out this sideboard if you're thinking about aggro. Is that you can have a healthy amount of your sideboard dedicated to aggro, and you're going to be able to deal with a variety of decks, which I think is great. And then, your maybe your 3 or 4 other cards are things that'll help you out in those late game controls. That's where I particularly like mid-range decks, and that's maybe just how I play, what I like, but that's where I feel like I have the best opportunity for meta flexibility.
Right. Yeah, there's no deck where your main deck's going to be perfect and your side deck's going to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Like you're gonna have to not have an answer to a certain deck, and it's just play to your locals, play to what you think you're going to see at a PQ, play to the strengths in your deck too. Don't just throw something in completely niche that is a super disadvantage just because it's really good against that one matchup though. Like in Sabine, I know there was a list for a big tournament overseas that was running the Chaos of War out of Aspect because it's a double red so playing it for 5 to burn Bosk Blue, and I'm like, I just don't think that's necessary to do that. Yeah, you're really leaning into it. You have other cards to help in that matchup. So yeah, again, you're not going to have the perfect deck list. Like it's just going to be, it just has to be perfect for that day. That's what you have to build it around.
Yeah. So I mean, and those are your options really. There is that you can certainly, you can play the Chaos of Wars, or like the Yoda Red had like Smoke and Cinders. It is probably like, I don't want to deal with Blue Bosk having 8 cards in their hands, so I'm gonna side this in to just deal with that. And you can do that, or you can just kind of find those more flexible sideboard options. Like I don't like Han, so I'm considering Boss Green because I might side or even just consider mainboarding Scanning Officers because that tech comes out, I can play in the initiative, play Scanning Officer, burn 3 resources from them, hopefully one of them's a DJ, and that's great. But it also has potential flexibility with some of this other stuff because I'm looking at these top decks, and a lot of them are holding smuggles.
Yeah.
Smuggle cards. Sabine is just Cassian, but that's, Sabine just has Cassian. Quinlan's got a couple, I think 1 or 2 options there. There's
he's got like the gun, and then Cassian too, and then techs just like thrown into hero decks in certain places just to like have it.
So there's some ways that can splash, and like right now, everyone's strategy is like, oh, I open my hand with a smuggle, I can set it down because I can play it later. I play that, and I can play that, and I can even maybe turn off a turn 1 play. That feels great.
Right.
So, not to just hyper focus on what I'm considering for my next PQ. But those are the conversations you just have to have. And the other thing that you have to do, you just play test. You know, Bobby from KTOD said it best. One of the biggest SWU resolutions has to be to stop playing just best of ones. On
Yes.
with your friends or online or whatever it's gonna be. Like, you gotta start playing those best of threes. You've got to
Yeah.
try those sideboard options, and you just kind of have to grind against a couple of these decks to just see the flow.
Right.
And you're gonna just start slowly learning and anticipating a little more naturally what these decks do, because like you said, Alec, it's you know it's a long these PQs are long events, and there's a lot going on, and you don't want to be you don't want to be burned out because you don't have the answers, or you're getting frustrated, or you just don't know what to do. Like, if you can build a little bit of that muscle memory, and I can probably build a little confidence to just give it your best. And sometimes you just gotta accept it's like, well, I'm sideboarded for all this, but then Watambor Green came in and hit command on curve. So, well, what can you do about that?
Yeah. What can you do? He can win too.
Absolutely.
Someone's going to do it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I can't wait for that one.
Yeah. It's you just do what is ultimately going to make you like the most comfortable and happy. I didn't necessarily feel like playing Sabine was the smartest decision, but it felt like the best decision for me, and it turned out to be a pretty darn good decision. So,
yeah,
it's just going with like what you think you should be doing that day.
Yeah. And just remember, it's a game. Have some fun.
It's a game.
I think the biggest thing that I enjoyed was, hopping in the car with my buddies and, going out somewhere and having a good time. That's
Yeah. Yeah, I know. We were all prepared to just go, 03 drop and and just head back to the hotel, get in the hot tub. But ultimately, yeah, it was fun just getting out, playing card games. Ultimately, that's what we're there for, to have a, hyper focused competitive day, but nonetheless, it's still fun and it's there to have fun. So I know I've got 2 more coming up, and I'm a big fan of mono green Palp, and I'm just like, do I just throw it out there for the last one and have fun, pray for good that I don't play Han?
Well, you're gonna get the dub here this weekend, so you absolutely will for the third.
Yeah, then I definitely will. Yeah.
No, you're gonna be that Wat Tambor.
I'm bringing Mace Windu.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the guy justice.
Hey, he won. It's valid.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, I think it's a strong, healthy meta. I think we're seeing a lot come out of this. I think a lot of new ideas have come out there and have kind of just taken the game by storm, and that kind of makes it fun because you got to make that game day decision on what you're going to do.
Right. Yep.
But, that's all I got. At least right now. What about you?
I think that's it. Yeah, it's a good time in the game. A lot of things you could be playing that you'll win with. So it just comes down to what you got to do, and that's all I got.
Yeah. So you've got. I think you and Max will be at the next PQ.
Yep. On Saturday. The 18th, I want to say.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Well, it might be a Sunday.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then I think we're all going to try and convene in February for the last one in our area.
Yep. Then that'll be our last one of the season, unless we find one later that we decide to throw ourselves at.
We'll see. Depends on, I guess, how these ones go. But
right.
I think we got some thinking to do. I think we might throw out a hot deck if we can muster it as we we prepare for the rest of this, but let us know your thoughts on the meta right now. You know, we enjoy doing this content. If you enjoy watching us, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Like our content, or just let us know what you want to see from us. But thanks again, everyone, for listening. Good luck if you're going to a PQ here soon. Congratulations to the current winners, and we'll see you in the next one.
All right. Peace out.
Peace out.
Grand Army of the Republic when deployed. Galactic warfare you cannot avoid. Go ahead, be a battle droid. Face off against my clone troopers and get destroyed. Space tech, spaceports, TCG, card sports, of course. Till my voice goes hoarse. Welcome, wrecking, decking with the strategy. The energy, it's Clone Force 23.